Today we're brewing a very berry cider.
Now this is just your basic cider with some berries added, okay? So don't get too crazy. The juice came from Costco, as did the berries. This is their triple berry mix. It came frozen. It's a 3-pound bag. I'm using about half of it in the beginning phase, and we'll use the other half if needed later on. I just wanted to break that into 2 pieces because if you put the fruit in primary fermentation, you get the essence of the fruit as well as some fruity flavors. If you put it into the back end or the secondary or conditioning phase of fermentation, you get more of the fruity flavors of the fruit. So that's why we like to use both. We get both that way. But
some people don't necessarily like the taste of fermented fruit. So if you start off with a more neutral base and then add your fruit addition in secondary, then you'll stick truer to the fruit taste rather than the fermented fruit taste.
right.
We like both, so we're gonna do it both ways.
A couple of things. First, this is going to be another one of those where we don't really know exactly how much alcohol is going to be in it. But in my opinion, the difference from 6 to 8% or even 9% doesn't really matter all that much to me. This, we know the juice is 1.054 from a previous video. We also know that there's probably some sugars in the fruit, but berries are low on the sugar food chain, so there's less sugars here than you might think. Fermented out, maybe it'll add 20 points of gravity to it, 30 points. Not a big deal. The important numbers come at the end. So I'm not even going to take a hydrometer reading today.
So we don't need this.
Just not going to do it.
And we don't need this. They're just going to go away.
What I am going to do though, is something that people get on us about all the time is I'm going to use a brew bag for the fruit. And we're going to take it even a step further. One thing I'd like to point out, every fermentation starts with one very important step, and that is sanitation. Everything that we used here is sanitized in
The red bucket of sanitation!
which is quite simply the bucket behind Erica
There it is.
filled with sanitizer fluid. Now our sanitizer fluid happens to be Star San mixed to the manufacturer's suggestions. People ask all the time, are there alternatives? We are not experienced with alternatives to Star San because we are able to get it quite easily, though I know our friends in England use baby bottle sanitizer to great effect. I don't know the brand, I could probably find out though. But anyway, to make this, we're going to use the aforementioned triple berry frozen combo from Costco, which I put in a bowl and hit in the microwave for a couple of minutes to defrost it. It's now a mush of fruit and juice, and it's all good, okay? We're also going to be using the Kirkland apple juice. We're going to be using 2 grams of Fermade O. I'm going to be adding a cinnamon stick just because I think cinnamon and berry works really, really nice together. Also adds a little bit of tannic aspect to the wine. And to do this, we're going to use a brew bag. And inside that brew bag, I'm going to put a glass weight. This is a fermentation weight. Now, a lot of people have been giving me heck because I don't usually use brew bags. Why? Because I just don't care. It just doesn't bother me to clean them up afterwards because I don't do the cleanup. She does. So I don't really worry about it. And okay, do you lose more product? Maybe. It's debatable. I don't know. But we're going to do it this way today. And the weight is there simply to hold it down into the liquid so that it doesn't float and cause mold issues. So I'm going to try to very carefully, get this into this. Oh, look at that. And we just put it over the mouth of the fermenter so that it goes in nice and easy. All the juice is going to come through, obviously. Try to get it all in there. Every drop is sacred.
So what we're not going to put in our brew bag is the stick of cinnamon, and that is because cinnamon at times can overpower our brew. So we want to have the availability to remove it if we feel it's necessary.
I'm wrapping this up really good, and what I want to try to do is kind of fold it onto itself. I know I'm screwing this up. I just have a feeling. I just don't want it to float back up. You know, go through all this effort and then it just floats up anyway. I need to wash my hands. Let me dip them into turbos. Okay, well, that was pretty easy. So now, you know what? I'm gonna throw the cinnamon stick in there. And, throw the yeast in there too. I'm using Lalvin D47. Why? Because it's the last packet we have. And this one says it expired May of 2021. So if it doesn't work, we'll just pitch another yeast afterwards. But we keep them in the fridge. And I know for a fact that they go a lot longer than a year past their date. And some people will be like, why are you putting the yeast in now? Why not? What's the harm? It all has to mix through anyway, right? So what's the real difference here? Why make life harder?
Since we're putting stuff in, let's go ahead and put our yeast nutrient, which is ferment in.
Actually, I'm gonna wait on that because it's very concentrated. I'm afraid of putting that directly onto the yeast. I'd rather have some juice in there first. It's almost like we planned it or something. All right, now, when I pour this in, because this is a larger container, I'm not gonna have as easy of a time mixing it, especially with that bag in the bottom. I'm going to let it splash a bit. Like that. What I'm doing is letting oxygen get into that must. Is it really splashing?
Now you can see all the bubbles that are being created and the turbulence that's going on. That is oxygenating the brew.
A little. It's not the same, but it helps. I'm actually kind of impressed I did that without spilling all over the place. Okay, now...
Do you want a little bit more apple juice?
You know what? We have some apple juice left over from another brew that we just recently did. Yeah, let's add it. If you don't have extra, it's totally okay. But this is why we're using a big fermenter. Or not, this isn't why, but since we're using a big fermenter, why not? I mean, why waste it, right? Okay, I'm not throwing that again because that was really loud. Probably scared the crap out of our cats. Poor Indigo's down to like 3 lives or something. And this is our yeast nutrient. This is just 2 grams of ferment and a little bit of water mixed together. I'm just gonna pour that in there. And I'll use the whisk of unusually small size, also known as the wuss, and just give that a quick stir around to break up any clumps, because the yeast kind of clumped.
The ferment is completely optional. We're adding it just in case the nitrogen that was inherent in the juice and the fruit isn't as readily accessible to our yeast. So ferment is going to make sure that our yeast have plenty of nutrients to get them all happy and going on fermentation.
Okay, and as I said, I'm not going to take a reading on this because what's the point? That fruit has more sugars in it. It'd be an approximation no matter what. So I'm just not going to worry about it. So let's have a lid and an airlock and get this thing going.
Okay, so we are using Northern Brewer's Big Little Mouth Bubbler, Little Big Mouth Bubbler.
Little Big Mouth Bubbler.
Little Big Mouth Bubbler.
This one happens to have a spigot on it.
Yes, so a note about those and their lids. They are going to have this thin piece of foam material attached inside their lid. It's removable.
Don't throw it away. Some people have done that.
Do not throw it away because what that does, because it's foam, even though it's very thin, it will compress as you tighten the lid down, creating a seal. So that piece is really necessary. There's
a lot of rings, a lot of whatever you want to call it to get it on there. But once you get it in place, just keep cranking it down. Crank it down hard. They do sell replacements for those, but they're just the same thing, just another version of it. I guess if you use like 4 or 5 of them, it might be really effective. And then I'm going to put the airlock in there. Now in the airlock we have sanitizer fluid like we always do. You could use any kind of distilled spirit that you want to. Just please don't use like wood alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohols, things like that. Those are dangerous for you. Do not do that, please. So we have our juice, we have our berries, we have our yeast, we have our nutrient, we have our cinnamon, we have our airlock, we have it in the fermenter.
We have our notes.
What's left?
We just gotta wait for this to get going, and when it does, we will show you.
Okay, so it's the next morning, and as you can see, we have an active fermentation. It's a little overactive, as evidenced by the spillage in there. But when you look inside, you can totally see bubbles. Let me see if I can get that to focus better. You can see the bubbles going on in there. You can see how active it is. That's what you're looking for. You can also see the bag submerged in there, and it is not coming through the top. As the airlock gets filled up with the pink liquid, the must, we just take it out, clean it up, and put it back on. I haven't cleaned it out yet. We just wanted to give you guys an idea of what it looks like. This is totally fine. It's totally safe. You just want to clean it out. If it continues to happen, you might want to consider a blow-off tube. But that's it. So this is going to go away for a couple of weeks, and we'll just keep an eye on making sure that airlock doesn't blow out. And as always, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.